What's happening, everyone, man? Thanks for tuning in. So, Undisputed's off, eh? Disappointing, man. Caleb Plant versus Canelo. It's been called off due to negotiations. So, I'm going to talk about that, man. I'm going to talk about that. Before I do, man, I just want to say thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your time. Thanks for hearing me out. All right. So yeah, man, it's a shame. It's a shame that they turned that fight down, man. Or negotiations fell. Plant's asking for $10 million. And which is a bit greedy, man, if you ask me. He's only got the one belt. Canelo's got three. He should be accepting any offer, man. Canelo's finished beating his mandatory, man. Plant is yet to challenge a mandatory for 2 years, you know what I mean? So, it's a big setback for him. I don't know what he was thinking. It's another letdown for the sport of boxing. Not sure what Canelo's going to do next, man. I think that he'll probably try to maybe renegotiate, or he could possibly put up weight and go to light heavyweight. He's the face of boxing, so he can do whatever he wants, really, man. It's Caleb Plant's losing out more here due to greed, knowing that Canelo's the face of boxing. Mega pay-per-view star, he's asking for $10 million. And that's the problem with boxing nowadays, These voluntary challengers asking for more. When they only have one bout, or when they have no bouts, It's not good, they should be taking any offer means necessary. Because if they beat them, then they're in a better position than them, you know what I mean? So why turn it down to start with? It's silly. But so that's off, man. Another Undisputed off. I wanted to talk on mandatories and voluntaries, man. Do a little breakdown on that, man, while I have anyone that's still tuned in, man, watching. So mandatories, man. When you're a mandatory, man, people are legally obligated to fight you. When you're voluntary, then, the fight normally falls due to negotiations, You can easily just walk away from that sort of fight. You know what I mean? You can easily walk away from a voluntary. Which you shouldn't, When you're voluntary, man, you're chosen to fight. Canelo's obviously got the bigger hand, man. He's got more belts, so he's chosen to fight Caleb Plant for the Undisputed. That's his choice. That's who he wanted to fight. So another example was Joshua choosing White to fight White after the Miller fight fell. White turned it down due to a low ball offer. It's silly. These people should be accepting it by all means necessary. They're going to be in a better position if they win. You know what I mean? So they can always make their money back. So why turn down the biggest fight of their life? Why don't? I don't get it. I don't understand it. So breaking down mandatories and voluntaries, man. A perfect example is Dillian White. He was only a mandatory, man, when he beat Oscar Rivas. And then he had some substance, whatever. And he was under investigation, So he was only a mandatory for less than 1 year, So he was number one in 2017, So he wasn't chosen to fight for the title. It's been that long, man. Only AJ chose to fight him, and he turned that down because it was a low ball offer. So now he's wanting to talk to the WBC to try to make him a mandatory because, as I said before, when you're mandatory, you can make moves here, man. You can say, man, you're legally obligated to fight me. I want to fight, you know what I mean? When you're voluntary, man, it just comes to money, negotiations. And like again, man, if you're a voluntary challenger, you shouldn't turn it down. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, man. Why turn that sort of fight down, So another setback, man. So when White talks to the WBC, man, because he wants to make himself the mandatory, man, he's got to take into accountability that he was only number one. He was never a mandatory challenger. Only only when he beat Rivas, and then he had some substance, he was on the investigation. So his case won't be that strong. I mean, sure, he can say, you know what, man, I was number one in 2017, but Dominic Brazil was mandatory then, you know what I mean? So he's got to be careful what he says to the WBC. I believe he has been shortchanged from them, just being that in 2017 he should have been mandatory, but that's just not how it works, Some people get chosen, some people don't. So, WBC saying after this fight, then we'll let you know. So I guess that's something to argue about, but he's also got to consider, he was on the investigation. And if anything, man, if I was him, I'd talk to her and say, give me another voluntary challenge against AJ, man, if he gets through his mandatory Usyk, That's what I'll be doing if I was white, or going after Trevor Bryan. Trying to get a mandatory position to legally obligate someone to fight him, or else he ain't going to see a title shot. So we'll see what happens, man. So that's my breakdown of mandatories and voluntaries. Like I said, man, if you're a voluntary, man, and it's going to put you in a bigger position, man, you take the challenge. Man, don't be silly, man. Stop chasing figures. Chase legacy, man, and chase positions to be in a better position that you were in before, man. You take that voluntary, man. Any offer means necessary, man. You take it. You become the champion, man, and then you're in control, puts you in a higher position. So that's what these boxers need to do, man. Another thing that I've noticed, man, what boxers are doing is they're saying, man, this is boxing, man. Anything can happen here, man. Anything can happen. Anyone will fight anyone, man. Who knows, man? We'll see what happens. Wrong mentality. What you need to do, man, is try your best to become mandatory, and then press the organization to get you a fight, because then they're legally obligated to fight you. Another example, Caleb Plant, been champion for over 2 years, hasn't had one mandatory defense yet, man. People aren't pressing the IBF to fight him, So this is the problem here with boxing, man. Fighters are getting too comfortable with their promoters running the show and their managers instead of running it themselves, man. The fighters need to make the fights, especially when they're mandatories, man. When you're voluntary, don't turn it down. If you're a mandatory, man, make it happen. Make it happen ASAP. So that's my breakdown of it, man. That's my take of the Undisputed being off. Another one. And we'll see what happens with Canelo, man. He could go to light heavyweight, man, challenge the light heavyweight champion. He can do whatever he wants, man. He's the face of boxing, man. I see him trying to get that Undisputed fight, man, maybe renegotiating. But then again, man, Caleb Plant, his mandatory may be due. So we'll see what happens, man. Let me know what you think will happen. Thanks for tuning in again, man. If you haven't, subscribed to the channel. Peace. I'm out.